wanted to show you the implementation of my new window frames. The window frames are 5 feet by 5 feet, and they are made up of TM1812 strips, which is 32 pixels per strip, individually controlled. But I didn't want to have that many channels dedicated to the window frames. I was trying to cut down on channels, so I brought out the old grouping firmware to take care of the window frames, and this is how it works. The window frames have 52 pixels on the left, right, top, and bottom for a total of 208 pixels. So what I did is I brought up the firmware software controller to configure the firmware for the grouping, and the start channel is 1, and then the node count I basically set to 104. The reason I set it for 104 is the SmartString controller can only control up to 128 nodes. So that means I have one controller that controls the left and the top, and one controller that controls the bottom and the right. Each controller controls 104 pixels. So what I do is I set up the node count for 104 and the start channel for this one for 101, and I set the two flexible strips TM1812, and then the standard grouping I set to 4 because I want to break it up into 4 pixels per group, and that way I save on 4 times the amount of channels by doing that. But then I've also implemented a custom feature that I've talked about in one of my other videos called custom grouping. And what custom grouping does is allow you to add custom groups, up to 10 of them at different sizes. So what I want to do here is, since this controller is going to control the left and the right, and each side has 52 pixels, I want to add a group, and I want to set the first group to 52, and then I want to add another group and set up the next group to 52. And what that will do is allow me to control the left and the top as individual pixel, cutting down on channels even more so. So once that is set up, I want to enable a feature that I described in a video called Allow First RGB Channel to Control Settings. And what that does is that creates a control channel, an RGB channel that consists of 3 light channels, and only the first one is implemented. And the way it works is the first channel, if it's set between 1 and 127, it will use whatever that number is to set the grouping. So you can actually change the grouping. For instance, the grouping that I set here is 4. I can actually change that on the fly by changing channel 1 when this allow first RGB channel to control settings is selected, and basically I could change the grouping of the whole strip on the fly with that first channel when I send it a value between 1 and 127. If I send it a value between 128 and 192, I basically will tell the controller to go ahead and put it back into the standard group mode, which means it'll be in groups of 4, and then the data would correspond to groups of 4. And if I wanted to put it into this custom group mode, I would set it to a value that's between 192 and 255. And that's the way that works. The first channel, all zeros will be ignored, so you can just send a 1 second of each value and then have it go back to 0, so you don't actually need to send that number all the time. For instance, if I wanted to put it into a custom group mode on the fly, which is a number between 1 and 127, I could just send it a 50 for like a second, and then defaultly the channel's probably sitting at 0 anyway, and then go back to 0. It will ignore the 0 and will only look for a change of a number that's greater than 0. And then if I wanted to put it to standard mode, I could set it between 128 and 192 for a small portion of time, and it would put into that mode. So let me demonstrate that for you now. And then basically I would transmit this controller and actually set up the controller. And I would do this twice, one for each controller, one that controls the left and one that controls the top, and then one that controls the bottom and one that controls the right. I've already done that, so I won't do that now. But let's go to LSP, where you see we have the controllers in there. We have 2 controllers set up, and I'm actually looking at a video of the video. So we'll hide that. So you see we have a the controller set up here, two controllers of which have the 18 channels. One is a control channel, the other 17 is the channels that control the groupings of 4, and we have that on each one. So if I go ahead and just open up the tester here, you can see right off the bat it's put into standard group mode. So if I just send it the first color channel, which is really the second channel, because the first channel is for you know, setting that override. So if I hit that, you can see the first one lights up and it's in a group of 4, and then I turn on the second one and then the third one, and you see that those are working correctly. And then here's where the power of the firmware comes in. Basically, as I move the first channel from 1 to 127, you'll see the group length change. So right there, it's at the lowest setting, it's groups of 2, and LSP actually doesn't send every value from, you know, 1 to 127 because it's in percentages. So the next value would be, you know, 5, and then so forth. You see the group size is getting bigger as I move this, you know, along. And say, you know, I'm in the middle of a sequence, and the next sequence I want to go back to standard group mode. Well, in the beginning of the sequence I could just send it a value between 128 and 192, which is what I've done here, and you see it went back to standard group mode. And that's how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them all off now. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into that custom group mode where I define those two groups of 52 nodes. And to do that, you just go over 192 with the first channel, and you can see that now the channels are driving you know, each side correspondingly. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Again, the controller lets us put it in 3 different modes. One is from 1 to 127 on the first channel, which allows you to vary the actual grouping by the number that you send it. And then the other one is from 128 to 192, which puts it in the standard group mode, which is that grouping mode that I will probably be in most of the time, which I set to 4. Of course, that could be set from 1, which would be individual pixels, all the way up to the length of the string. And then the last mode, which is the custom group mode, where you can define up to 10 groups, which might be good for Windows and objects, maybe Coro stars and such, where the actual number of nodes in each section is different. And you could then go ahead and use that. It would be actually, this would be great for a Coro star, because you would be able to individually control it if you wanted to, but then be able to go back to the group mode at any time and then control each group independently with just as few channels as you would need. So I hope you enjoy the video, and thank you.